What's going on, everyone? We are live in the studio right now at our first live show of the Lombard Trucking Show. So glad you guys can be here. The haters and losers, of which there are many, and yes, I'm talking about the ATA, the DOT, the FMCSA. They didn't want this to happen. They did everything they could to stop this from happening. In fact, they sent somebody out to Des Moines, Iowa to back into my truck. They're trying to get Lombard to quit. They want him to stop. They want him to stop talking. But we got here. We are at episode 69, and it couldn't be nicer. I'm here joined by some former guests and some allies in the fight, former guests of the show who have come back on, and we're just going to absolutely send it. Going around the room, we've got Dominic Tullo up there, the bulk fuel specialist, the deaf delivery man. He came on here. We talked truck coin swap, and now I'm helping him out with the boys over at Truck Coin Swap. Justin Martin, the last man left in Honest Freight News Media over at Freightwaves, as well as Reed Lostolo, the founder of Lost Freight, who's trying to make relations great again between carriers and brokers. Gentlemen, fellas, let's go.
There's no way you didn't rehearse that.
You think no, I didn't rehearse that. I let that came rip. I let that one.
That's
fly.
Straight off the top. That's from all the practice of running down the road with a weighted vest, doing TikToks. Mike's done that with oxygen deprivation. He could easily do it on camera, live with all of us. Mike, thank you for having all of us on the 69th Lombard Trucking Show. It's an absolute honor to be here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the biggest reason why I wanted you guys on here. And it's not like I'm playing favorites, but what makes it important about, this show, well, 69 is just, the number one, playing into the 69 thing just goes along with like kind of what we're all doing as a brand, like on LinkedIn and everything, which is ship posting and kind of, changing the way the freight industry has looked. Because as we know, and I talked about with Blythe on our show, is like, if there's nothing sexy about logistics or like funny, there's nothing you can spin it. So but what's also great is, we've been talking about how in freight, there's this disconnect of building relationships and, guys communicating better. And the thing is, if it wasn't for doing this show and if it wasn't for doing what I do, I would have never gotten the opportunity to meet guys like you who are all doing outstanding things. And I think what each of us doing individually is really, helping better the entire logistics world. So glad to have you boys on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So
fucking go, dude.
Yeah. So what's been going on in the media? Justin, you've been getting hot and heavy on TikTok again. The driver shortage narrative has made its rounds again through major media outlets.
Has that been going on TikTok? Has that been going on TikTok right now?
Yeah. I uploaded a video today. It's up to 1,500 views. This is about the time of night when like the views really take off.
Damn, I might have to stitch you. I might have to hop on this engagement train here.
Yeah, I like to think that most of our audience is not watching stuff during the day, and then when they're parked for the night, everything just takes off like a rocket, and that's typically what happens with our views. But no, I was just scrolling through Twitter the other day, and I saw Craig posted about there not being a driver shortage, and I was like, okay, right on, we can work with this. And so just for shits and giggles, I searched truck driver shortage on Twitter, arranged by latest. And lo and behold, there's this guy with like 90,000 followers. Never heard of him. Apparently, he's some kind of like AI data scientist. And the site's weird. Like the articles aren't really posted by him. They're just kind of like these weird. It almost looks like ChatGPT generated like drill.
That guy looks like a bot.
It probably is.
Yeah.
It might as well be.
Yeah. I mean, there was like zero thought whatsoever put it. You could tell whoever wrote this was like super mercenary. Give me my $20. Here's your article. Have a nice day. It wasn't like a Freightwaves article where they did their research and dug deep and had sources and everything. And so just for shits and giggles, I responded to him, and then like you guys all piled on, and it's been great. So I'm gonna keep this going. I think there's been a lot of articles over the years that like when something gets put out, you can tell who's like legit because people like Rachel Premack is a good example. That's basically how she got her start in this industry. Was her editor said, "Hey, do a story about trucking," and she goes, "Okay," does the story, and her inbox just gets flooded with truck drivers saying, "Oh, no, you're wrong about X, Y, and Z." And rather than brush them all aside and say, "Well, this is what the experts are telling me," she listened to the drivers and actually took it seriously. And now I don't think there's a truck driver out there that doesn't like take everything she says, for granted. Like everybody listens and respects whatever Rachel puts out there.
Well,
At least
she earned everybody's trust.
Yeah, exactly. And trust is asymmetrical. You could have a, Dan Rather is a good example. You could have a decade-long stellar career, but then one little screw up and it all gets tossed out the window.
It's just what's crazy about the driver shortage narrative, like you put in your TikTok, is the fact that they've set, like, the ATA has been shoving this narrative into the media for 10 years. And
so can somebody explain to me what they stand to gain from doing this?
It's lobbying money. So they lobby federal and state governments to say, hey, we're short on truck drivers. The states say, okay, where do you want the money to go? And they say, to these truck driving schools. So the truck driving schools get a check from the government, and everybody gets fat and happy off of it. What they don't want is for companies to improve their retention rates. Because if I'm Walmart or the post office, all these big companies out there with low turnover, I hire 50 guys, I'm good for like the next 30 years. And then that shuts the faucet off. And the other thing too is, like, if you're the journalist, like, writing these articles, I totally understand why they get trapped in this. It's, my editor tells me I need to write about XYZ. So what do? I Google who is the trucking expert, and then that Google spits out ATA, because it's the American Trucking Association, not the lobbying group that backs the trucking industry, not the truck drivers. So they just ask the ATA, hey, my editor's telling me to write a story. What you got for me? And then they get fed because you can tell I didn't have time today, but what I really wanted to do was to take like 50 different videos from YouTube, and like, remember that viral video from like a couple years ago where it was like, this is harmful to our democracy? I wanted to do that, but with the 80,000 driver shortage, because they all get fed the same line. And that's how you can tell that it's an ATA fed article, is they use the same points, the same stats, the same numbers. It's always 80,000. It's always, if we don't fix it within the next year, it's going to be 120,000 the next year. Like, it can't be that for 8 years in a row, guys.
Yeah.
It's just
Driver shortages must be cyclical, like every other market, whether it's like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down. Sometimes it's tight, sometimes it's not. I have seen periods of time where it's difficult to find good drivers, or drivers at all. Maybe in like 2018, 2019, especially in 2020, when everybody was slammed, everybody is super busy. It certainly gets a little bit tighter in that time. But then right now, they're abundant. You put an Indeed application up. Me, I run a small fleet, 8 guys. I had 50 applicants in 24 hours for the most recent job posting I put up, which is insane.
Yeah.
Whereas in 2018, 2019, maybe I would get 5 in a day if I'm lucky. So it must be cyclical like everything else. So to use that 80,000 figure, years later is just intellectually dishonest at best.
Yeah. And what drives me nuts too about it is they haven't said that talking point in like over a year now. Any journalist or article that's putting this stuff out, they're already behind on what the new talking point is. The new talking point now is truck parking shortage, which really sucks because like we all agree with that. We're like, yeah, we need more parking, but they're only doing that because that's where the money's at now. Now there's all this state funding tied up with, if you want this highway project in your district improved, guess what? You're gonna have to sign up with all this extra truck parking money tied up.
Isn't that a good thing?
Yes, but they can set aside all the money in the world that they want. Nobody wants a truck stop in their backyard.
Yeah, Dom's mentioned this. It comes down to zoning, and what ends up as going on with these bills, which we've been seeing at CDL Drivers Unlimited, is a lot of these bills will start off as these like almost like one-page bills allocating X amount of money, and then all of a sudden it goes to the transportation committee, and then but all this fund's got to get divvied up to all this other ways, and they end up adding pork to it. But that's the thing. The problem is also finding where you're going to do the parking. You have to go through so much zoning. Now,
before we change gears on that for 1 second, Dom's a real estate guy, aspiring real estate guy, mogul, if you will. Highest and best use, common phrase in real estate.
Yeah.
How often is a truck stop the highest and best use for a piece of property?
Oh, that's a really good question. Look, it's not always going to be. All I can talk about is my specific, micro environment that I've been in. There's a pilot in Mahwah, New Jersey, which is on the border of New York and New Jersey. So it's a really busy spot. It's like the main vein to get up to Canada if you're leaving the port of Newark. And that got fought for years. And took them probably 5 years to get that approved. Is it highest and best use? Could that truck stop be 1 or 2 miles a different way in a different town and still do well? The answer is yes, because it's a pilot. So they have a draw that most truck stops are not going to have. If you're an independent truck stop operator like me, you really need yours to be in a highest and best use location. Otherwise, it's simply not going to produce the same way a pilot would because of the national deals that they have. Now, when it comes to parking, highest and best use is a little bit different because you need property that has what's called low coverage. So you can park as much as you can, and there's no buildings or not much building covering the property. So there's more space for it. But the thing is, these decisions are all made on a municipal level. So these are, while they're national problems, the decision makers are making them in such a smaller mindset because they have to, right? Because you have the school in Mahwah, there's a school behind that truck stop or within probably about a quarter mile. And the school didn't want idling trucks near. So now they have a rule there where you can't idle past a certain time. Is that going to get enforced? No, probably not.
They never do.
But now there's truck parking in Mahwah, New Jersey, where otherwise there never would be. It's in Bergen County. It's an affluent part of the state of New Jersey. So you have municipal level employees doing the best for their town, which is basically leading to a shortage. And I say that in quotes because if you look around, there's no actual shortage of land. There's just shortage of land allocated to parking. So municipal level, but national issue. And that's why you have this disconnect.
Yeah, it's there's a brand new Loves in Connecticut that went through the same thing. And what's crazy about the Loves in Connecticut is it was built where there's already a TA, and it took years and years. And now a similar thing is happening in New Braunfels right now. They have they already have a massive TA there, but at the same time they're trying to build a Loves, and there's a whole website. Like I went for a run around this TA and I saw a sign that said stoplovesnb.com, where the whole town is going off about something Loves. They already have a TA. So the truck stop exists, but they don't want more because they don't want more traffic and more this. So to answer one of the questions we got in the comments, if the property is going to be on the interstate, it's just from the outside looking in, the property being on the interstate, of course, would be a great thing because in theory, you're adding to the economy and already to an existing truck parking market. But these local municipalities still don't want, for some reason, the NIMBYism really comes out in full force when it comes to truck parking, even when it's already there.
Hey, Mike,
it's crazy.
It could be pilot lobbying locally to stop that TA or Loves from being put in because they don't want the competition in their neighborhood.
Yeah,
that's not unheard of.
And a lot of communities will have like a website that'll say stop the Austin, Texas loves.com or whatever. And it's like some guy lives in a nice neighborhood, but the county's decided they want to put like a Loves on not on his side, but on the other side of his house on, off of what was it, 35 that runs through Austin. And nobody wants it there, even that far out of the way. Because I totally get it. You might have a truck that like leaves the Loves or is on their way to the Loves, gets lost, and now they got a truck in their front yard. Happens all the time.
Dude, trucking is like literally nobody wants to allocate resources to it or think about it or like acknowledge it until it's like way too late and there's just a shitload of problems. Like, and that's just became even more apparent in the last couple of years. But that's just probably generally true with like supply chain for lack of a better term, just in general, not even just trucking. It's like, as soon as you can't just go to the grocery store and get whatever the fuck you want from like any corner of the world at any point in time, like you're going to just like never think about it. Like
people forget about seasons. Like there used to be, 9 months out of the year you couldn't buy oranges. You can only get oranges like during the orange season.
I live in Boston and I can't get a tropical fruit in the dead of winter. What the fuck? Like it's just so absurd. Like our perspective is just so warped by like how freaking awesome our system is, and like it's absurd. It's crazy.
Now, Claudia asked in the comments if I'm on the road, if there's parking like instead of a cornfield between two cities, would that be of use? You do get interesting with when it comes to finding truck parking spots. I mean, I use Google Maps a lot, so I park at Planet Fitnesses, and I use Google Maps to kind of scope around the area. So I mean, it's not as though it's impossible, but what the biggest problem with parking is it's related to so many other issues going on. We have such high turnover in the industry, so the people who are trying to find parking, who are having issues, are the people driving your general freight of all kinds. So they're parking illegally. They don't know where to go. They have the experience to get that creative. And on top of that, what's even crazier is this truck parking didn't really start to become a major issue until the ELD mandate. I mean, I think the ELD mandate, it really accelerated the issue because now people are starting and stopping driving at similar times, similar hours. And especially when it's based around certain appointment times, shippers and receivers, and don't allow parking on their properties. I don't think the ELD mandate has helped, and that's what's also pushed more turnover. And when you have more turnover, you're going to have less experienced guys trying to know where to park safely. And
That's a great point. I was just talking with Gord today about they say that they make these rules for the exception, not the rule. So you'll have guys that say like, well, if they can't find truck parking, it's just because they're not trip planning or whatever. But like you said, so many guys are parking at the same time because they're all running out of hours at the exact same time because all the shippers and receivers all have the similar hours. These guys working at the warehouses don't have to worry about where they're parking for the night. They clock in, do their shift, they clock out, and they go home. And the truck driver that they loaded or unloaded or is waiting to get unloaded or loaded the next day is sitting there in their parking lot idling. If the place is cool enough with letting them do that, and a lot of places aren't.
now, Dom, at your truck stop, do guys have to pay there at all to park overnight?
They do.
We
sell in 12-hour increments, and it's basically $1 an hour. And if you buy
Reasonable.
75 gallons of fuel, the parking is free. If you buy 150 gallons of fuel, the parking is free and the shower is free. Now you have to consider where we are. The average truck stop in the United States is on 25 acres. The Tullo truck stop is on 3. So land is super, super scarce. So the parking is scarce. We only offer about 30 spaces that are designed for that overnight parking.
But yeah, in your aspect, well, even though you charge for parking, which I'm not against that, because number one, there's even places in Texas that will charge for overnight parking, the small ones. These are what the independents have to do to survive and compete in this market against the major retail stops. But where you're at, you're so close to the New York metropolitan area. I mean, parking up there is essentially a nightmare, even compared to where Justin used to live down in Philadelphia. Like Justin, you said Philadelphia, you can find your honey holes and your hiding spots. New York, upper New York, you're screwed. I mean, I'll never forget when I had delivered in Elizabeth and I was at this receiver for, 5-6 hours. I was very lucky. The next place I was going was an actual Walmart. I was picking up self-checkouts at right by JFK because I was scared at where I was going to have to park going from Elizabeth just to JFK.
Yeah, so the Sunoco's up and down the turnpike, I think there's 9 or 10 of them. They have a lot of truck parking that's free, but a lot of those drivers, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but some percentage of those drivers chooses to pay to park with us because they know their truck's not going to get banged into. They know we have cameras on site. We have 24-hour security just constantly monitoring the parking lot. So there is some value add, but some guys don't want to park at the Sunoco's because you just have a bunch of over-the-road guys who are not used to tight parking. It's tight in those lots, so they get their trucks banged up and no cameras.
The TA in Wildwood, Florida, that was the first time I was ever offered crack by just some rando walking through the parking lot. And so a lot of guys park across the street at the Chrome Shop.
That is a value add service.
That's where that NIMBYism comes into play. I remember the article about the Loves in Connecticut is specifically in the article. They didn't want drug dealers and women of the night to be frequent in the area more because let's be honest, when it comes to truck parking, that's where a lot of it is. Like, the Loves in West Memphis, the Petro in Gary, Indiana. Like some of these truck stops are built in very undesirable locations.
Can we also just acknowledge, Mike, you just said this. like, how is there not a truck parking app called Honeyhole? Like, like that is the most that's the most obvious name I've ever heard. Like, now that you've said that to me, I'm like, that is the best name for a truck parking site ever.
No, the thing with parking like that though is like, yeah, it's a spot, but it's not somewhere where you want to like leave the truck unattended for a couple of days. Now, Dom, at your truck stop, do you have guys that like not just park overnight, but like they use your truck stop for when they're doing their home time?
So we offer monthly parking. Yes. So guys can park there nightly. And there's a lot of that by us because 80% of it's owner operator, single truck owner operator who just do drayage work and then park and then drive home to like Newark or a surrounding metro. So yeah, we do have that.
That's like every truck stop in South Florida. Many
really?
guys, like if you're just driving through the area and like say you're dropping off or picking up for the day and you need to find like overnight parking, good luck, because all the truck parking is taken up by guys who pay by the month or the week or however long. They're not just parked overnight; they're parked there for days while they're on their home time. So when I was down there, I was lucky. The guy that I was driving with, he found a spot for us, and it was inside of a vacant lot. We paid I think the rate was actually $200 a month, but we just parked. We paid $200 every time we parked, which was like every month and a half, and it was great. And the lot's still there. It's not the greatest lot. I mean, it's literally just a dirt lot, and I think maybe another 30 trucks park their stuff there. But I mean, that's it. There's no Loves or TA, or I think the furthest south, Jupiter, I think maybe, or a little north of Jupiter, there's like a big Flying J and the Blue Beacon and all that up there off of 95. But other than that, maybe the Turnpike, if the service plazas are still open, which a lot of times they're not because they're always under construction. South Florida is a huge mess. I just visited my brother-in-law there last month, and they have a Publix distribution center right behind them in Boynton Beach, Florida. And I was watching where all the trucks in the area would just like sandwich themselves between some palm trees. And they're like, yep, this is my spot for the day. It's like, Jesus Christ, they got to do everything they can to park down there.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. Florida's a rough spot. Now, Aaron Dunn from the Trucking from Millennials podcast, he dropped a comment on here saying he talked to Evan Shelley, which is from Truck Parking Club. Now, Dom, you had spoken to him recently too. Now, what is it they're trying to do? They're trying to capitalize on not primarily the landowners, but just with like empty spaces on existing yards.
My perspective of what they're doing, he may say it a little bit differently, but it's similar to Airbnbs or it's similar to Ubers. It's illegal to just start being a taxi driver, but Uber found a way using technology to kind of work around this. It's illegal in some municipalities to just rent your place on a short-term basis, but this app Airbnb just kind of makes it easier because it's so seamless. And you don't need a contract and you don't need a lease. Truck Parking Club, in my eyes, is very similar in that you don't need to have your parking lot zoned as truck parking. The guy doesn't have a lease. He's only parking there for one day. So it kind of skips the zoning process. And I think that's the true beauty of it, is it kind of democratizes the ability to truck park. And that's why I love when Evan said to me, there's no shortage of truck parking. There's just a shortage of basically the truck parking that's available being properly marketed. I thought that was pretty sharp. I also like that Evan mentioned that they will offer free truck parking when possible. So, they really do have truckers in mind when building this. And then one of the women who works there who helps run it, who actually takes the phone calls and does customer service, was in the trucking business. So it's really built in that mind frame for truckers. And then the last thing I really liked is they do have some boots on the ground that will actually drive out and see a facility and make sure it's adequate for truck parking, make sure it's safe. So when you put all of those things together and the obvious need as we're talking about, I think the sky is the limit for Truck Parking Club.
Yeah, I'm super bullish on those guys too. I would love to have him on the show here soon to talk more in detail on that too. I just love that he's been making the rounds. People have been trucking for millennials. You guys have been talking to him. He's making the rounds, and it's like I said, because there's only two angles. The two angles are going at it the slow conventional way of raising funds, doing it your way, like how you have a truck stop and like going about it that way, or like getting the government involved. And look, this problem has been for the most part, caused a lot by government action. So it's going to take it's going to take the funding of the federal government to help in some ways, considering they're the ones who maintain highway systems. So going that way, but that route still becomes so messy because everything in the transportation, anything that goes through legislation has to go through all these. It has to go to committees, and then they have to change it in committees because they have to appease all these other people. It's so corrupt that it just it just makes you want to give up, on the issue. But they've created another angle from the position Airbnb that I can that I think is really going to work too.
I think we're at such an interesting inflection point as where you look at this podcast that we're recording right now. It's 4 young faces. It's guys who are passionate, and we're actually talking to each other and teaching each other about the different parts of our company. You see Evan Shelley, young guy, super passionate. He's making his rounds. He understands social media. He's probably not saying no to anyone's podcast. That's why he's been on so many of them. It's so intelligent. And then earlier in the show, I wanted to stop you and say, then you see like what Reed is doing with like building memes, like making it like funny and entertaining to like share real things that are happening and actually educating, like Lumper Appreciation Week. I've never heard of that, but Reed's making it funny. It's viral. People are learning. Mike Lombard, you're on TikTok. You're making like David Goggins-esque videos running down the street. It's entertaining. It's hard hitting, right? So just what's happening right now, I think, is such an interesting time where quicker than ever, we're actually going to see a lot of these changes and improvements actually get made.
I sure hope so, because I can't tell you how many group chats I'm in where they circle the wagons on all these topics, and everybody just says, "Okay, what's going to get done? What's going to get done?" So,
well, we do that too.
Sure, that's half the fun.
I mean, we like every single week on the Twitter space, we rehash the same exact thing to the point where I have to be like, "Yo, let's fucking this horse is already glue. Like we're done, man." Like.
Yeah.
No, it's a vicious circle in that, and that's because the freight Facebook groups. Yeah, this one group, the owner operator no authority group for this NOOA organization that's trying to put themselves together. It's a constant group of people talking about rates and are they serious with this $5 a mile stuff? And there's so many people out there who want to organize and stuff like that, and that's what's gotten me involved with being with, like, that's what actually floated me towards the Schmitz more.
Mm-hmm.
Lee and Lisa Schmidt on this, and CDL Drivers Unlimited, because they're not just circling these wagons. Like, what's going on is like solutions are actually being proposed. Like, we're drafting letters with solutions, and went to DC to speak to the Transportation Research Board with a packet of solutions. Hey, these are the rules in the books. This is how they need to be enforced. Like, nobody's proposing solutions. There's a lot of complaining and talk, but I know that we do it too. But there's solutions coming out of the Lost Freight Discord as well.
Yeah, the first time I talked to Lisa over the phone, and they kind of gave me like the full detail of like what happened, because I don't know if you know my story of how I first ran into them. I did a TikTok doing like a reaction to all these different websites were doing articles on their application for like a solo exemption from the hours of service rules. And my mistake was that I read a summary of their summary, which was a summary of some other summary. So I was getting like all kinds of like basic stuff wrong on it. And she just lit my ass up in the comments. And I normally don't read the comments because it's just a wave of just, the most dumb shit ever. But I don't know how, but hers got like through and came to the top. And so I read it and I was like, oh, I fucked up. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to say F-bombs on here. But I DM'd her and I was like, I am so sorry. Point me in the direction of a sword. I will like lay on it. Just tell me what to do. And so we talked to each other over the phone the next day, and she gave me the whole rundown of like their plan, step by step, exactly what they were going to do. I was like, oh man, they actually know like what they're doing and stuff. So no, I told them I will take the video down if you want me to, but I'd rather keep it up and I'll do a follow-up video, because I don't want to like be one of those guys that just like hides all my mistakes and to make it look like I never screw up or anything. I was like, and to this day I'll still get comments on that video from people being like, you idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. So it's great. And that has actually helped me a lot on TikTok, because people have seen like when I get stuff wrong, I own up to it. I'm like, oh, I effed up. Like, I'm sorry. Here's how I can correct it. And like we were talking earlier, like that just gives guys so much more trust. You know, actually screwing up, like accident, not on purpose, but like just, you know, oops, I messed up. Here's how I can fix it. Owning it and then moving forward does so much more for your reputation than just like deleting everything, hiding the skeletons, you know, making it look like you never make a mistake. Like that is huge to people in this industry.
Yeah, because ego's taken over a lot over the past.
Yeah.
Egos have been showing a lot, especially this entire year. With especially with the videos I've made talking about, being leasing on with a carrier versus your own authority. All these different factors. A lot of people's egos are showing where they feel and the guys from Blue Ribbon Logistics talk about this. These people feel as though that they're owed money by certain groups and entities when they themselves are, like Reed says, they're just swiping right on load boards. And unfortunately, that's not going to get you the money you think you deserve over a long period of time. And the solutions are going to come. And I know Reed says we do it a lot too, but the only way solutions are going to come, solutions I feel like can get manifested sometimes just by having open dialogue and conversation, owning up to mistakes, being in a place like our Discord and just talking, literally just having conversations is how you're going to come up with these solutions.
Yeah,
that's the only way that it's going to happen. But
yeah, because it might be like just the 8 of us like all having like the same thing over and over again. But someday there might be like 2 extra people in there that weren't in there before, and the new idea might come along. I saw in the comments earlier, Lumper Appreciation Week. I gotta tell you, Reed, I don't know if I sent you the message. Rachel told me that the laptop class is learning.
Dude, they like that. We got to blow that shit out of the water next year. I don't know what we're gonna do yet, but like, I mean, whatever the date it was, May something. Like, we gotta just come up with some sort of just like absurd thing that we can do. Maybe we can like go and like get like, we need to find somebody who owns a warehouse, and maybe we go like unload trucks for a week or something like that. And make like a video of us like trying to be lumpers, man. Like I that's what I don't know. I'll figure something out. Like we'll do it.
I think getting a plaque for like getting a custom made plaque with an etching of a forklift on it, and or for like best literally the Lumper of the Year award, and we go to a random. And if you sent an email to a Capstone Logistics at like the Capstone that works at the Cisco down in San Marcos or wherever, if you just were to email like their supervisor, it'd be like, hi, there was a random survey done, by this company. Like, you could totally lie and they would believe it. And you just be like, we found out that this employee or you ask them to nominate, like, hey, we found that, data shown that you guys have been the best lumper company in the industry, and we want you to nominate your best forklift operator. Dude, they'll fall for that hook line.
No, the trophy.
I'm not trying to own them. I'm not trying to dunk on lumpers. You know what I mean? Like they're not like the actual guys doing the work there are not the ones setting the prices.
No,
you know what I mean?
But
no.
But I like that you talking about lumper appreciation brings like more people into the know, because like when I first started trucking in 2007, like nobody knew what the hell lumpers were, like outside of trucking. Like when I would go back home, when I would tell my friends like all the BS that I had to deal with and stuff, they're like, what, that's nuts. But then like later on in my professional career, like more people know because I'm talking to more drivers. But now that I'm driving a desk and I'm talking to more people outside of trucking again, when I mentioned when I'm laughing at your memes about lumper appreciation, everyone's like, what is this? What do you mean? So I have to explain to them like what lumpers are and like the bullshit that drivers have to deal with, and they're like, "Wait, this is like really a thing? Like you can't just you have to pay somebody to unload the truck for you when you get somewhere?" I'm like, "Yeah,
dude,
all that happens all the time."
That just in general though, like posting memes that are like hard to even tell if you're serious or not, and then people take them seriously. Like these guys who are like flaming me on LinkedIn for posting Lumper Appreciation Week has got to be like the funniest thing like ever. It's just so awesome.
Thanks
the
for the
outrage, the outrage was the best part. Like the people who did get on there, who like fell for that clickbait. Like, are you kidding? I've spent $300. Like my carrier, one of my drivers couldn't leave because I had to cut him a $300 EFS check or something like that. Like there's people who actually bought into it. Like appreciate them. And the people who fell for it will climb
The trophy should be like a gold com check.
Yeah.
That's what it should be, or like a framed gold com check.
You know what's nuts about the idea of lumpers though is just how in general, like, so deregulation, we've talked about a lot in the show, like deregulation was kind of, skewered like the Teamsters and kind of, and changed the trucking industry. But but the thing to carry on from that era has been the lumpers. Like because these lumpers are unionized. Somehow they were able to kind of go untouched in this industry, and like, because there's never gonna I don't think you can ever get rid of them. Like I don't think it's
Are they all union?
I was gonna say I don't think they're unionized. None of the ones I've ever interacted with were.
They're not all unionized, but some of them are. But in general, but those companies they offer the same like pay and benefit. Like they pay really well. They have really good benefits. Like just them existing. Like how come they weren't deregulated? Like how come that didn't?
Maybe the
nothing,
joke. Maybe the
they kind of are.
Truckers.
I mean, they're like a whole separate entity from the warehouse. They're not paying them insurance, or they're not depending on the freight they're touching, they're not doing background checks or anything. So like, it totally makes sense. Like if I'm a young guy in like my 20s or 30s with like a criminal record, this is a great job because it's probably cash under the table. As long as you have a pulse and you're showing up for work every day, they don't care.
Dude, but Capstone tries to my favorite thing about it is that Capstone tries to make it seem like some super sexy thing. They call it like the tactical operations team or something like that.
How long has Capstone been around? Because I don't think I've ever been to a single Capstone warehouse once the entire time I was
Capstone. Dude, Capstone unloads a lot of warehouses.
Yeah, that's been who I've worked with.
Yeah, they're like.
Why don't warehouses just hire their own people?
Because then they would have to hire their own people.
Nobody wants to do that. You know what I mean? Like, no, that's just the same thing in every domain. Like contractors and staffing companies and
right.
Yeah.
People like to compartmentalize like our lives and our economy, I guess, and just like turn everything into this like abstraction, and like we just do that with everything.
Yeah. No, Publix had a really good system with their guys. Like we didn't have lumpers. We actually had like employees, and again, this was back in like the early 2000s, so it could be different now. But you were offered a choice of being paid by the hour or by the parcel. And a lot of guys, when they start out, they decide to work by the hour. But then they see what all the seasoned guys are doing there. And what they do is they come in, clock in,
they hustle,
slam like 3 trucks in a row, and then they clock out for the day, and they're done. And they're making way more money.
There's
than the guys that
like
by the hour.
just a severe like, and I've been thinking about this a lot just in general. Like when I go to Starbucks, and I ask like the person making drinks or whatever, I'm like, and there's like 70 mobile orders like sitting on the counter, and I'm like, do you like the mobile order system? And I ask people this at Chipotle, I ask them at Starbucks, everywhere I go, I ask the workers, I'm like, what do you think about mobile ordering? And they're all like, I fucking hate it. Like, this sucks.
As the consumer, why would you want it too? Like if you're ordering an iced drink, it's warm by the time you get there. If you're ordering a hot drink, it's cold by the time you get there.
But not even that. Just hold on. So like they hate it. And it's just simply because the kitchens and the preparation areas are not designed to handle the throughput and the order volume that the internet and not having to be right there ordering allows them to really create, right? So now all of a sudden, you go from being able to take however many orders an hour to being able to take unlimited orders per hour theoretically, right? And they don't like their compensation is not changed, and there's no variability to their compensation. And like, there's no upside to making more drinks, despite there being upside for the company, right?
Well, you get tips on the orders.
Yeah, people should tip more.
Yeah. Maybe they do. But when you're like a stone motherfucker sitting on your couch, like waiting for your DoorDash Chipotle to show up, like, you're not looking that person in the eye when you're stiffing them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
that's a good point, because if I order something to go, like if I go and pick it up, I don't do a tip. But if it's being delivered to me, I tip.
You're right.
That's a good point.
You are right. That has been the biggest problem. And, I know and I'm friends with, several progressive people, and this is where progressives are right in a sense of like, and Gord even talks about this too, is that, hours worked and productivity has gone up and up, yet the wages have either stayed the same or gone down in a way, because when you're working more hours and when you're producing more, well, then how come you shouldn't be compensated for it? And I mean, even, we have a LinkedIn comment from Madison who shout out, appreciate you tuning in live. She's been very engaged on the show. She says they can't control the capacity. Like when you have that much capacity, and it's limitless, you can keep ordering, like Reed said, everybody hates it because they're doing more work. But they're not paid anymore. I think it's kind of a problem.
They can build that into the app. Like I know, like restaurants, if you're on Grubhub, you can turn your restaurant on or off. Like if you're busy in your restaurant and you don't have time or the workforce to do online orders, you can just pause it for the day or for the hour. So
that would require an on-site manager who's cognizant, and realistically, Starbucks is just which is a big thing these days, right? To have somebody competent on-site and actually be the operator. Let alone, there's no way Starbucks is going to let their stores not take orders. They want that money. The right thing to do would be build these places out in a way where they can handle the orders.
Remember, that was supposed to be like the next big thing during the pandemic, was like instead of a new McDonald's with like a dining area, it would just be like a McDonald's or whatever inside of like some random warehouse space where all they would do is like online to go orders, and that kind of like fizzled out and went nowhere. You don't hear. In fact, a lot of restaurants. Remember it was like Chili's and Applebee's and all those restaurants were like, it was their company, but they would have like 5 different little like sub restaurants under their names. Like that just got shut down this year too.
In Madison comments again, she says exactly incompetency within, which Don was talking about, having that manager, which is crazy, because I follow kind of like labor news and stuff on Twitter, because this idea of a labor shortage is trickling into other industries now. Service industry being one of them. Like this idea of certain labor shortages. Now, I've actually heard that nuclear scientists, I had a friend who came on the show, her name's Zoe. She works in the oil and gas industry, and she went to a conference where actually, because of like political reasons, a lot less people are going into nuclear engineering. So that's a physical shortage that's going on. But in other aspects of labor, like in the service industry, they keep talking about shortages and people, this phrase of nobody wants to work anymore. Like you always hear that from a lot of conservatives. Nobody wants to work anymore. And it's like, is that really the answer? Because that's not the answer in trucking. It's not that nobody wants to drive. How many, there's X amount, there's how many CDLs in surplus, at some point, and this is, when libertarians get butthurt when they hear about this, but at some point, the job's just got to be worth it, for people.
Funny how you mentioned it was like nuclear scientists that are they're short on. I was literally, while I was making dinner before I came on the podcast, I'm listening to this talk by this girl talking about string theory, how like string theory in the last 30 years has just been a complete waste of time. So you have all these tenured professors who 20 years ago got like a nice cushy job at a university somewhere, have nothing to show for it, but all these other areas that they could have gone into and produced something of value are now all short, because for the last 30 years, everybody's been funneling into string theory. And that's kind of how we can apply this same thing to like all these other industries. Like I'm a millennial. I graduated high school in 2002. So I was trained from kindergarten up to, if you want to make anything of yourself in life, you have to go to college and then graduate and get a degree and, do X, Y, and Z. And the first school that I looked into while I was in high school, it was film school. And they're like, yeah, it'll be $74,000 a year. And I said, no, thanks. And just went to work, and I'm making less money than other colleagues of mine or other classmates of mine that did get degrees, but I don't have any student loans.
Right.
Yeah. Like my wife makes a lot more than I do, but she's also paying $800 a month, with her student loans. We haven't paid them in the last 3 years because of the student loan pause, but that's going to expire in July. So that's going to be $800 a month we won't have.
Yeah, they may gross more than you, but what are they netting after expenses, which are factors people don't look at that. They look at it just from what their yearly paycheck could be. Which those student loan things, I mean, I know it's always controversial talking about student loans. Me personally, and this is just from a moral standpoint. We bailed out banks in the auto industry, all the, and so like I said, I'm fiscally conservative in a lot of different ways, but when it comes to like what we've done, number one, and Dom knows this, we know that money's fake and fractional reserve banking is an absolute, gutless. I don't even know why it exists because it's literally a Ponzi scheme. But we've bailed out these other industries. The thing is, if you were to quote unquote cancel student debt, what it would do, the amount of money it would free up in the economy, I think goes beyond. I don't care if banks get damaged. Like I don't give a flying fuck if banks, thought it was a good idea because the government said so to give 18-year-olds money for degrees that had no. They were just giving away money at will at no risk for people getting degrees and who possibly careers that weren't going to afford them enough money to even pay back the loan. So just because the banks trusted the government, I don't care if the banks made those decisions. But the thing is, so we already bailed out the banks and we bailed out the auto industry. I think some of the American people who were fooled and gaslit into, hey, you have to do this. You if you don't do this, you'll fail. I think cutting them a break or cutting them some slack on it just frees up so much more money. You're looking at, now they'll maybe go get mortgages, buy homes, buy cars. They'll go out, they'll bring that money. They bring that money back out into the economy, no matter what.
I think you're so spot on, but that would band-aid the issue and it wouldn't solve the underlying reason the issue exists.
True.
So they would need to not only do that, but it would also have to be that schools are only $75,000, like Justin's mentioning, because you can get a low interest rate loan. So schools can charge more because the money's cheaper and more abundant. So if the government stopped giving loans in general or really tuned them back or didn't give all the money that you could possibly ask for, schools couldn't charge as much, debt wouldn't be as bad. And then we wouldn't have this over allocation of everybody trying to graduate school and then going into finance, right? We're too long on finance in this country, and we don't have enough engineers. We don't have enough electricians. We don't have enough plumbers. We don't have people who actually are willing to do the real work. We have a bunch of keyboard monkeys. We all want to sit behind the desk. We all want to just punch numbers and make all this money passively, whereas we don't have all of those trades that we need to. So you're absolutely right. I don't care about the banks either. I would love for these people to just be able to have their education and not have to worry about all this overhanging debt. But also, if you look at other countries versus the United States and you see where our education system is going, we're basically trending towards the ground as far as the quality, whereas some other countries, whether like China, is just trending straight upwards. And it's more of a communist state. I don't know how they pay for schooling over there, but over here, we pay for it with interest, and the money is so abundant and free.
You think our money's fake? You should see theirs. No, for me, the biggest bullshit thing about it too is it's not even the education. Education is free. You can go, truck drivers. We know this. You can listen to podcasts all the. I guarantee you, truck drivers are some of the most on the whole, truck drivers out there that are listening to podcasts, 10 hours a day are probably some of the most well-educated guys we've ever had in this country. It's the accreditation. That's the key. You're not paying for the education. You're paying for the accreditation. That film school that I was going to was called Full Sail, and back when I was looking into it, they didn't even have accreditation. It was like a tech school, and you got a certificate of completion when you went through their program. I had a friend who went there years later when they changed their name to Full Sail University, and now you get a Bachelor of Science when you go through their program. And I think their tuition is like double now because they have to tack on all this extra stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with sound engineering or 3D animation or film school, because in order to be accredited, you have to have, feminist history and algebra and all these other classes that they have to tack onto it to get the accreditation. I think the first large company that decides, okay, we don't care what you have as long as you can show that you can do the job, or you agree to work with us for X, Y, and Z, and we'll teach you and build you up. As soon as like accreditation goes out the window, it is game over. The only thing that people go into these schools for now is your social networks that you build, because you'll probably like be in a fraternity or whatever, and you make some friends there, and those are the guys that like get you your jobs 10 years after you graduate. Or you still keep in touch with like your professors and stuff that you went through school. Absolutely.
you got to ask yourself, and my opinion on all this is probably not popular, but like, or I don't know about that, but like, it's not the question I always ask myself, and take everything I say with a grain of salt. But the question I always ask myself is like, is my opinion useful to me? You know what I mean? Is my opinion about the way the world works useful? And in that, I mean, like, is it useful for me to sit back and be like, I have a philosophy degree, by the way, for you guys, just for your.
Oh, really?
For your
I'm not surprised.
I do. And it's like, I could just sit back and be like, fuck, like, I'm screwed. Like, there's no, where are the philosopher jobs? Shit, you know, like, I could just sit back and do that, or I could be like, okay, like, great, like, what am I going to do? You know? So it's either, you know, the system's broken, and I need to fix the system, or I'm broken and I need to fix myself. Which one's easier? The second one, right? The second one. And we have way too many people sitting around being like, oh, the system's fucked. Like, God, it's like, guess what? What the fuck are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? You got to play the game either way. The system may be broken. It may be rigged. The game may be, the deck is stacked against you. Guess what? It probably is. But like, what are you going to do about it? You know, like, and you can sit around and be like, oh yeah, like, you know, we need to fix education and all these other things. And yes, we do 100%, like whatever that means. Right. And it's so easy to say all these things that like sound awesome. Right. But like, what are you going to actually do about it? Like, what action is going to be taken? And to me, it's like, you know, I'm looking at the world and I'm just like, you can literally do whatever the fuck. Right. It doesn't matter if you have a degree. It already doesn't matter if you have a degree. Right. If you tell yourself that, oh shit, I have a philosophy degree, I'm going to amount to nothing now because U.S. News and World Report said my degree is the most useless fucking waste of time ever. Like, great. Yeah, you're right. But like, if you're like, okay, great. Like, I have a philosophy degree. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, oh, well, I can do this. Sure. Of course you can. You could probably read Plato's Republic on TikTok in like a Southern accent and make like $1 million next year. You know what I mean? Like, it is just, you can just, fucking Lombard could probably like run down the street and recite, you know, whatever, like insert fucking Shakespearean play. And he could, it's just like, the world is insane and you can do anything. Anybody can do anything. And like, just people need to tell themselves that more, you know, like, it's just crazy that people like aren't shouting this from the rooftops. Right. But the reality is, and that's true. It's so true. It's unbelievably true. But the reality is that nobody's going to fucking do anything about it. Most people are never going to do anything. And therefore, that's like a good message to the people who do, because your competition is basically zero. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing to say, but that's just the truth.
No, that's great. But again, I think you have the type of personality where you yourself are like super malleable. So I guess I want to think that like whatever system you went through, if you come out the other end, you're still going to be like, well, that was something. And then you'll just go off and do whatever you want. I've been saying for a long time that I think the schools and the systems that we have set up now aren't making people like you. And whether that's like a nature versus nurture thing, whether you need to be born with it, I don't know. But I know
I don't know what system would make somebody like me. I have no idea.
I don't know, but I do know that like the best kind of people who are going to succeed who are in school now are those who can learn, unlearn, and then relearn. Because if you're the way we have it now is like you got to know what you want to do for the rest of your life by like middle school, and then go through the schooling.
Lie, dude. That's a scam.
That's nonsense.
That's like
it is. It is, but that's what they're
told
that's
like
what
50
that's what
years
they're being
ago
told.
when you're like your whole life was lived in a factory working for one company. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like we have a very like static view of history. We almost like these days we almost think we like live in this like inert world where nothing ever changes and things are always the way they are and forever should be that way. It's like we like to harken back to like the 50s when one income could support like a family of 3.5 kids or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that is not the world.
No.
You know, and it never will be again. And as much as we want to like freeze time and just have the playing field remain the same forever for this 110, but guess what? That like 15, 20, 30 year period where shit was really awesome and working is literally the vast exception to the rule of history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, before that, life was brutal.
Yeah.
You know, life was brutal for everybody, literally everybody, even the richest people in the world. Life was brutal, right? And now, like, sure, you know, maybe for those 15, 20, 30 years, whatever, you know, golden era you want to pick, it's like awesome, great. Like, that's how it was for a very, very, very short amount of time. And maybe we'll get to a point where there's something like it, but we're never going back. This notion of going back is fake. It doesn't exist.
No,
like, that's a scam.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with you 100%.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the way the schools are now, or at least they were. Plus, like when we were going through school, that's what it was expected. By the time you're in high school, it's like, okay, where are you going to go for college? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what that. Like, I wanted to do X, Y, and Z when I was 18, and by the time I was 25, I was doing like 5 other things that I never even thought. Like, if you'd have told me in high school, if you told me that by the time I discovered Newgrounds.com, that there would be all these like weird behind the scenes things that would happen where I would like befriend the guys who like created the website, and that would like lead to these 20 connections that would like lead me down to the job I have today. I never would have believed you. I just thought you'd have been like some raving lunatic with like, you know, a bunch of dots connected conspiracies behind you. But that's how life is. That's what life is. It's always who you know, not just what you know.
dude, you can know people instantly now, you know, like look at us. Like we're just like a bunch of fucking assholes on the internet, like talking about whatever the hell we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Right. And we got to where we are now because we pressed a bunch of like keys straight up. Like that's all we do.
Monkeys screaming into a keyboard.
It's awesome.
We mentioned it briefly. I want to see a good series from Mike. Oh, Mike, this is a good series for you. Next time you're jogging in your TikToks, pull out a copy of the Machiavellis and just like read like an excerpt or two from there. Just like I want a whole series of you just reading quotes from that book.
Just from
you did a rant about him recently, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was his birthday recently. I owe one to Todd over at TCS. I need to remark that probably that's why I can link Machiavelli because Machiavelli ended up being outcasted and he was tortured and stuff. And I think and we can link this to because it was the Medici family who he was such a patriot for, and he changed the whole like political, he's the father of political science, so to speak, but yet he ends up tortured. I think you can link it to fractional reserve banking.
I can't wait to see how you link it,
dude. How else can Machiavelli go from hero, almost worshipped by the Medicis to then being an outcast and tortured? I think the link in that chain has to do with the Medici's fucking fractional reserve banking. Led him down this road.
We need this yesterday, dude.
Yeah.
We need this now.
We don't need Machiavelli's intelligence and great ideas anymore. We could just make fake money, and now it's valuable. Yeah, let's torture this guy before people start believing him more than this fake money we're gonna pump out.
Oh man, that's such a good bit.
It kind of makes me lament that like social media and all that didn't exist when these guys were alive. Like, thank God we had printing presses and stuff, so we got all their ideas written down, and they were saved over the years. But yeah, just imagine like ideas like that, like being in the zeitgeist now. Like there are, excuse me, there are like your political radicals like on the fringe that still talk about Machiavelli and stuff. I asked you before if you're like a fan of Curtis Yarvin and all that. He has this program, this idea that he calls RAGE. Retire all government employees, and to me, like that is like the perfect, like forget like overthrowing, like forget like a violent overthrow of the government and stuff. Just do like what all the Baltic states did. It's like, hey, Soviet Union's collapsing. We're not going to kill you guys. Just please take your pension and go away. Like just take the money and go. And I think if he did that with a lot of of the corrupt people in politics right now, they would just go, oh okay, yeah, bye, see ya. I'll take the money and go,
dude. And there's something that's why I went from being, people ask me how do you do it, how do you go from being a libertarian in 2016 to now a based monarchist at this point. And it's because what you have to do is you have to be the grand Napoleon of things to be like, hey man, here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm actually going to I'm gonna retire you. I'm gonna give you a full pension, and you can ride off into the sunset, or you can face total annihilation. Like that.
Yeah.
That's so much better. Like, what do you prefer?
Famous monarchist.
Yeah, you just
Can you put that in your Twitter bio right now?
Yeah, you
please?
should.
I thought he did. I thought you have it in there.
I have Napoleon Respecter in my Twitter bio, but it's so true. Like retired government employees, like, hey, all of you all have not done your job well. Here's what we're gonna do out of fear of rebellion, because that's the thing. You retire these people. Caesar did this during the Africa campaign. His troops, and Alexander did this at the towards in India. All of his troops were getting ready to mutiny. They were very unhappy. And what does he do? He said, fine. He said, fine. You all can go home. And Alexander did this, I think, when he was near India. He goes, you can all go home. And then the army I've built along the way, the places I've conquered, they will fight for me now. But all of you who came with me, and I made you richer, and I made you governors, and I gave you these honors, the same thing, you can all retire. And what do? They stay with him. Caesar did the same thing in the African campaign. These guys were pissed. They're ready to go home. And so the Caesar walks out, he talks to all these guys in front of thousands of his soldiers, and he just calls them citizens in Latin. He yells out citizens. He retires them all. He just sends them, hey, you're fine. You have full pensions. You can go. What do? They're right back with him rallying.
I love how Lombard actually has like the history to back this stuff up, because I just listen to like these like crazy guys go on and on about monarchism and retiring government employees, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fun, and I go on to the next one, but you're like, yeah.
No,
yeah.
I'm just saying some of these, some of these things. I think they have some. Yeah, I think they still have some kind of purpose. Like you say, when it comes to, when you look, I think democracy. People think democracy is perfect. It's really not. Democracy is literally a gaslighting contest. And at this point, it's not about proving who's better for your vote. It's about proving who's worse to not get your vote. That's
and we see that right now. It's never like, what can I do for you? It's vote for me or the other guys are going to kill you.
Yeah. Is that like, in what way is that efficient? Is that an efficient way to run a country?
Yeah.
It's
a great way to break one apart.
Do you guys, Lombard, have you ever read about, you probably have, you read about Lee Kuan Yew?
No. What about?
Does anyone know who that is? He's like the founder of Singapore, and he basically turned Singapore from like a rice paddy into like what it is now. And he was like, basically, he was a dictator, basically, but he was like not, like a Pol Pot dictator, but like I'm like basically like a businessman, and I am gonna control everything. And he like evaded death multiple times when the Japanese like took over Singapore in World War II, and I think you would like him. And
so he's a based dictator.
In many ways, Lombard might consider him a based dictator.
Dude, look at the evidence. Look at what Napoleon did in Malta when he came into Malta. Like the entire country, just like in a matter of 7 days, just took everything, compartmentalized it, revamped their education system, paved their roads, installed street lights, like all the stuff he did within a matter of a week of walking into Malta. He did the same thing after the Italian campaign when he defeated the Austrians. And like he like Jews were living in ghettos. He liberates the Jews living in Italy. He like these towns and stuff in Italy were basically essentially run by Catholic church syndicates, where priests had these priests had their own armies in these towns, and they were just run by these random Catholic syndicates. And he liberated these towns and went in there, and he's just like, all this stuff is going. This guy was on the field of combat. He would be like on the field in combat in the midst of a war, and he would take 15 minutes that had to do something with arts and literature back in Paris, almost like a certain department back home in Paris. He's got to figure out this issue, send correspondence, and then get back and do this. Like that idea of intelligence just doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know if you could do it with a democratic republic.
Imagine what someone like that could have done with like real-time communication, like what we got today. That's nuts.
Madison M says those empires don't exist, and look, we can get into that, and it's because of and we can link that all the way back to fractional reserve banking too, because eventually
all empires have collapsed.
Is that just like the root of all evil? Lombard?
Honestly, it probably is. That's where it all starts to go wrong, because the ones who actually need to keep those reserves backed cannot be trusted. There's never been a situation in history where someone doesn't get the bright idea to print more and back it with less, and it just gets out of hand.
Isn't there like a whole conspiracy about like a lot of opponents to the Federal Reserve were on the Titanic and they all like drowned?
Oh yeah, Titanic was an inside job. That's
juicy.
like, yeah, that's very known. I think the Olympic was actually posed as they switched them for insurance money on that. That's a whole different story. But yeah, there were like three proposed. Yeah, look at who was on the Titanic, and then look who was supposed to be on the Titanic, and then wasn't. Yeah.
If you're ever in Phil, if you're big like the Titanic buff, if you're ever in Philadelphia, go down Columbus Avenue all the way down to the end towards Packard Terminal, and towards the east side near the river is the USS United States. Is one of the sister ships of the Titanic. When you're looking at this giant rust bucket on the dock, it's literally the Titanic, but just with a different nameplate on it. And they've had plans upon plans upon plans on like what to do with that thing over the last few decades. Like some people wanted to turn it into a casino, others are like just scrap the damn thing, it's literally falling apart. Others are like turn it into a museum. I was able to like run up and touch it because I was parked next to it on the docks, but yeah, it's just a huge rusting pile of shit right now. But when you look at it,
United States,
yeah, the USS United States.
I'm here right now.
See,
Ex-Marine, is there gold at Fort Knox?
I was in the Marines, and I couldn't tell you. I would have if it's a fort. I couldn't tell you that.
I can't tell you if there's gold or not. I've never been to the vault there, but there are a ton of grenades. I delivered many grenades to Fort Knox.
Oh, so you've delivered. Well, Fort Knox it's technically still an army post.
It's a tank training facility. I had friends that lived like out in the country near there, and on the weekends or like just any random time during the day, you'll just hear a kaboom in your backyard. It's a tank round being shot into a hill somewhere.
Really? That's all,
yeah.
And you used to deliver the munitions.
Yeah. When I held AA&E, I delivered all bases all over the country. I would see some cool stuff.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
But you didn't see any gold at Fort Knox.
No. Well, I wasn't delivering gold, so maybe they're blowing it up from all the munitions I was delivering there. No, the only time I ever got to like see, or if I thought I was gonna see something like cool and spicy was was it Creech? Yeah, the Navy base just north of Nevada, Las Vegas. So you got Creech Air Force Base, and then there's like a bunch of hills, and then you got Area 51 just north of it. And we're delivering missiles to this base because it's where they test like all the drones and stuff out there. And I couldn't help myself the whole time they're unloading me. I'm just bullshitting with the GIs there, and I'm like, "So what's over that hill, guys? What's over? When do we go over?" And they just like every time they're just like, "Dude, shut the fuck up! Just please stop."
Yeah, because they get it all the time. Yeah, you know that actually that's something I think that needs to be touched on, because I've listened to that Rogan episode with Bob Lazar, and I have no reason to say that Bob Lazar was wrong about anything. And then same thing with Commander Fravor, the Navy pilot, and then another guy. He was just on a show. I think his name's Dr. Sean Ryan. I'll have to look up that podcast. He's another guy who essentially talks about how the alien technology is already here and exists, and it's kept secret above the presidency and above the CIA, because essentially who has this technology declares the winner of Earth. And it goes into how a lot of this changed, because when we send off nuclear bombs, it's caused a reaction, like a butterfly effect, to these aliens, and that's what's caused their systems to go crazy. Regardless, what makes me curious about where Bob Lazar works is is the trucks that bring them their supplies. Like what CDL drivers are bringing them their food to these secret military bases.
So they a lot of it's like flights. They had those chartered flights from Las Vegas.
They drop it.
No. They so the people who like work there, like if you're clocking in 9 to 5 at Area 51, you have a chartered flight from Vegas that takes you there. But as far as like the food delivery and stuff, that's all just brought on regular trucks. Like it's just like any other delivery. It's just more of a pain in the ass because you're dealing with like the guards and don't get out of your truck.
Justin, what's the closest city to there? Is it Amargosa Valley? Amargosa?
Isn't it north of Vegas? You said.
I'm looking. So on Google Street View, You know how if you pull out the little dude, you can like drop him.
Yeah.
But if you're in this area on
can't.
Google Street View and you pull it out, it's a UFO that comes out. It's not a guy. Google's got like a UFO there.
There's like a gas station near there. Like the whole town is all like UFO stuff. Like they're totally into it. Let's see, Vegas.
I mean, you can't even pull that guy into nuclear plants. Like it stops well before the gate.
He says Rachel, Nevada.
That sounds about right.
Can you? Do you think that the aliens have a truck parking shortage?
Well, see, that's the thing, and that's what's crazy about this episode with Dr. Sean Ryan is essentially with this technology, it eliminates the need. What this alien technology actually does is it eliminates the need for energy, because the energy you're getting, and this goes in the real Tesla, not the fake Tesla owned by the car salesman Elon Musk, the real Nikola Tesla. He had this idea that you can get energy from the earth that would power your shit. And like you'd be pulling from the Earth's energy basis, and essentially energy's free. That's what this alien technology does: is it makes energy free. So what it would do.
He's saying we have this.
Yeah, and the idea is that we have this, and we have it in like, and it's probably owned within the United States, but we don't know if it's also owned by China or Russia, because this technology, the reason why it started to go haywire was because we dropped nuclear weapons, and dropping the nukes is what set off like this butterfly effect, because that energy did something to, these aliens technology. Because what it could do is like transportation becomes moot, because you could you have essentially what these devices are like, use a negative gravity type of technology that allows them to move in all these different directions. So I mean, imagine if we didn't need imagine if you didn't need oil and gas for anything at all. And I'm not talking about electricity. I'm not talking about like nuclear energy.
This sounds like a solution to the driver shortage.
Well, yeah.
The thing with me though is like if that technology existed and we had it, we would have been using it yesterday. Like we would, like, the whole reason we fight in all these like overseas conflicts is over your resources. Like we have plenty of resources here. We just don't want to be digging it up like they do over, in like the Saudi Arabia and stuff.
We talk a lot about inflation, but we don't talk enough about deflation, because technology is supposed to promise deflation, and we literally I don't think people like think enough about deflation.
It can't, because the government's always debasing the monetary supply by putting money into circulation with mortgages. You have to understand, like, and I didn't realize this till I really dug into it. When you get a mortgage, that money is minted into existence. That money didn't exist before you got that mortgage. So you can never reasonably have deflation, no matter how good the technology is, when the monetary system is always expanding.
No, well, it's always about scale. If it can scale, it can deflate, because look at our TVs. Our TVs, the TV you get now for like $300 is better than a $30,000 TV 20 years ago.
Yeah, but the cars are more expensive. That I think that's a. Can you tell me other technology or other products that have come down in cost that are that considerable?
No, cars is a good example, because you look at the features that are in like a base model car now. A $30,000 base model car now would have been a $90,000 premium trim car 15 years ago, and a lot of that's just because of the legislation. Like,
a $30,000 car now.
Yes, but the cars aren't cheaper. They could be if it was 15 years ago, but it's not, because it's today.
Yeah. Well, okay. So like Subaru is a good example. I drive two Subarus, and the last one I bought
at the same time.
No, not at the same time. I have one. I have a 2017. I'm blanking on it now. 2017 Impreza and a 2019 Forester. And when you go to Subarus now, the first thing that the salesperson is going to tell you is, oh, well, the rear-facing camera is standard in all of our cars going on 2017 forward. What they don't tell you is that that's like mandated by the federal government for all cars 2017 forward.
Right.
Kind of like when Werner likes to say that they've been pioneering electronic logs, which I find is funny. It's like, oh, great, you're the pioneer in them. Also, they're a disaster. Yeah, cars are funny because TVs, the better TVs get, the cheaper they seem the cheaper they get. all around. Cars are another beast too, because I'm all about, having a little bit better public infrastructure. There's too many cars on the road. I mean, and like we can't argue, like if we can get more people off the roads. I'm not saying eliminate the need for people to have cars, but giving people more options, I think it shouldn't be off the table for people. This, I understand, like, we're quote unquote not going backwards, like Reed had said, but 100 years ago there were town cars in cities like West Haven and stuff that trolleys that moved up and down.
Cars?
Street cars, yeah.
Dude, can we talk about how Firestone and GM and Standard Oil all colluded to destroy the streetcar networks of our great major cities?
Exactly. They gatekept and gave lobby government money. Like, people have no idea. It's just like, oh, it's the free market. It's the free market. No, it's really not. Not when an entire industry.
Yeah, LA had like the biggest streetcar network in the world, and it got like destroyed.
Yeah, and it's all because of government lobbying money. So it's actually, no, it's not the free market wanting. The reason why everyone has as many cars as they do is because
we're covering a lot of bases on this pod tonight.
Yeah, I love it.
This is very appropriate for episode 69.
Yeah, it's because people don't have choices on the cars. But what I don't like about cars is all the technology in them, because people don't seem to understand. And I know that, and I'm pretty sure it might have been Bezos, one of my enemies, who I declare an enemy, who said this. Somebody was mentioning like how, oh no, I think it was Jim Carrey. He said this. Jim Carrey was just like, oh, when you don't have that unpaid parking ticket, that car is going to take you right to the police department. These like when you have an infraction like on your car, or you didn't pay a parking ticket or something like this. All this technology in these cars, when they're able to just shut it off and shut it on, especially when they're electric, and they're charged, when they have all these computers in them and they have 5G and Wi-Fi. I think, and I think what's it called? Gord has said this best. The most eco-friendly car you can get is the one you already own. But shit, if I could have a car right now, it would be like a 1992 Square Cherokee, that you can fix. They've made these cars unfixable to yourself. There's so many computers, there's so many wiring. They're doing it with new trucks now too. That's why truckers love, that's why they love running Outlaws, because, well, they've been trucking for so long. Now they can work on the truck themselves. They can figure it out, because you can see everything now with all this other stuff, all the OEM parts, waiting on part. You can't fix this stuff yourself anymore. You can't even do. If you own a BMW, you can't give yourself an oil change.
The OEMs like have benefited from this tremendously. Is that the case?
Yeah, because they can make more money on parts and service, and they don't just make money just on selling you the tractor. They make money on servicing.
They're
down the line.
I can't even check the oil in my car.
They want in on like the subscription revenue.
I can't check the oil in my car, and
you can't?
No, I can't. There's no dipstick. So I have to go to the computer, and I was always told that you cannot check a car's oil while the engine's hot, because the engine goes through the cylinder heads and spreads out and does its thing. My car makes me run the car for 5 minutes and get the engine hot before I can check the oil. So it doesn't. That totally goes against the logic of what I was always like understood.
Yeah.
One other quick thing, and we all have these like micro situations that like make us seem conspiratorial about things, but I had a leased 2017 Mac Anthem sleeper cab. This thing, we ran the piss out of this thing up and down the turnpike, and it never had a single service issue. And then I have purchased Macs that are a disaster. And it's like, what are you guys doing different to these leased trucks that it never went back to the dealership? Not even once. Like, I just can't get my head around it. I'll never buy a truck again. I'm only going to lease, because they clearly program the software different or do something different.
You lease them from dealerships.
Yeah.
Like from
they don't want them back.
Dealership.
They don't want to see them back. So there's just something different about the leased trucks. Look, there probably isn't, but I think there is.
Yeah, I mean, that you may be onto something there, because I'm curious about that. I mean, I've always heard, what's crazy is it was more common pre-COVID. It was more common than you think. There's guys I followed on YouTube. Some guys really got started in the industry by leasing a truck from a dealer, not doing lease purchasing. They would lease a truck from there. I think there's a place out in Utah called Wasatch Leasing, was a real popular one that a lot of guys would go to. And I'll
never buy a power unit again, Mike.
Yeah, and they lease from dealerships.
I mean, is it like a legitimate thought that they're like treating these leases different than they are their?
No, I'm making it up, but I don't know.
I mean, I love making shit up, but like
when you put two trucks side by side, you run them the same way, same routes for 5 years, and one's in the dealership every 3 months and it's owned, and one's never in the dealership and it's leased. You can't help but wonder.
And the leased one, I'm sure, comes with some sort of better maintenance package.
We don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
If anything breaks, they have to fix it. Anything.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you might open up a can of worms on something.
We actually own one of those truck computers that you plug into under the ignition port to diagnose a truck. My 65-year-old father does the truck maintenance. Doesn't do the hands-on stuff, but dispatches it out to like a mobile truck repair guy that we use. And my father's been maintaining trucks for 40 years, so he's actually found it like a new challenge in trying to figure out how to maintain these new trucks. So we bought this computer, and we don't go to the dealership as much as we used to, because a lot of the times we just have to force a regen, and you can do that with one of these computers. So we save ourselves a lot of time not having to go to these dealerships with that computer. But
Taylor,
that software is not cheap.
No, yeah, you have to keep up with the software. What did it cost you? Like $4,000?
Yeah, it's like $4,000 for the software license, and then the computer itself is worth nothing. But it saves us a lot of time.
Our friend Taylor built, on Twitter, he tells me he did that too. He bought a thing and he force regens his truck. I forget his routine exactly, but he says that he force regens in his truck, and he's seldom had issues with his truck. Just gets regular oil changes. He even goes a little bit longer on oil changes. Like, he doesn't do maintenance as often, but doing forced regens, it seems to help.
It's funny how like him and all you guys are doing like forced regens. When we got our new trucks at the post office, they were 2021 internationals, and so these are the first trucks any of these guys had ever run that had def and did park regens or rolling regens and all that. And the first dozen or so 10 and 11 ton trucks that they gave us, they're Peterbilts. And a lot of guys, when they're parked, idling their truck, eating their lunch or whatever, it'd kick into regen, and they're like, what the hell is that? They'd press the override button, and it would stop.
Oh, that's the worst thing you can do.
And so they would do that again again and again.
Yeah, you're fucked.
And then 6 months later, boom, half the fleet is out of service because so many guys, smoked up the engines because they weren't letting the regen do its thing.
Oh, you're screwed, especially if that truck doesn't get your trucks probably did. My trucks don't always get highway mileage. I have 3 of my trucks only go about 5 miles a night, and they never get up to 60 miles an hour. So we have to regen them manually all the time. But sometimes we'll just take them up the highway and just blow it all out.
No,
but
these were all local. Yep, these were all local trucks on local routes. Yeah. The whole time you guys were talking, I was actually like poking around Area 51 on Google Maps, and I found a road that leads straight there off of Nevada 375. And what's funny is the road that goes off of that state highway, it's a dirt road, but the camera that's on top of the Google streetcar, when it's pointed down the dirt road, there's a cop car coming straight at it. There's a plume of dirt coming up behind that car. So I think somebody at the base was, they're monitoring that road, the traffic and everywhere, and anytime they see something with like a camera on that, they'll probably send the security force out there to
that guy, that poor driver we never seen again.
Well, okay, you remember that stupid meme like a couple years ago where everybody's like, let's all storm Area 51, they can't catch us all?
Yeah.
Facebook group. Yeah.
When that was happening, I was like, please let that happen. I promise you, the every base I go to, it's like the same group of guys. They all look like a Lombard.
I would love it.
And they're just bored. They're bored out of their minds with absolutely nothing to do. They just want to finish their shift, go home, and get as blackout drunk as possible, and then go back to work the next day and start it all over again. There is nothing they would love more than to have something like that break the monotony.
You would make their day.
Skulls. You'd make their year. There's guys that would like make. What kind of service meritorial badge would they get for like that, Lombard, if they crack a couple of hippie skulls?
Oh yeah, they would definitely make up some sort of ribbon for those guys. They'd have to, because those guys would demand some sort of combat action or campaign ribbon for some conflict. Yeah, they definitely make a conflict ribbon.
They can either shoot up the guys who come to Area 51, or they can join Lombard's Rebellion of Canada.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Or
Retire all the area.
annexation.
Retire all the Area 51 employees, and then we can actually finally see what's going on there.
Yeah.
And like Reed says, with this broker rate transparency, we're all just going to be very disappointed.
Yeah.
Yes,
People are going to be
we
let
will.
down.
We don't need to fucking talk about that dead glue. Maybe next time.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if we were going to hit on broker transparency at all. It is dead glue, because what's crazy is it's just, because people are still talking about it. Like I said, the Facebook groups are still always going on about, like, what are these brokers thinking? What are they're still going on about TQL, and it's just like, at this point, like, I could tell you, like, the broker's not making any money on that load. Nobody's making money. Like, you got to read the room at something. Are there still brokers lowballing? Yes. But it's just at this point, like, dude, the economy, it's in a downward spiral right now. There's not freight moving. The transparency. If the shipper found out, if I was a shipper and I found out I was paying $3,000 to a broker who was giving a carrier $800 as a shipper, I would never work with that broker again. I'd be like, you're a fucking scumbag.
Yeah.
And that would be found out so quickly, because the shipper wants that data reconciled. Because the shippers who wants the transparency, they want to know, hey, am I actually paying for this transportation? They want to know what you're paying for. Oh, wait, all these guys are looking for freight so bad. I just went on Facebook and I have thousands of truckers who are like, I'm not getting paid anything. Oh, I'll just go work with them. So if the transparency existed, it's just like, we're at that point. Maybe a little bit last year. I think last summer there might have been some transparency issues, especially because fuel was going up. But now that things have kind of, like I said, it's dead glue. And we're circling the wagons on it.
Dom, when you mentioned earlier about leasing a truck from the dealership, that kind of made me remember a lot of the contractors that we run into towards the end of my career at the post office. They all kind of like had like the same. They would all drive like these black Volvos, brand new, real nice tricked out trucks, but none of them knew what the hell they were doing. They're all like fresh off the boat Russians whose cousin got them their CDL and got them the job, and they're like, yeah, just run the tires off for 6 months, collect your money, and then go home. Don't worry about the truck. The bank will repo it, or I'll find some other guy for Craigslist to fill it in. But yeah, I have to imagine that's happening a lot.
Sure. Yeah, you lease a truck and just ditch it.
Yeah. It's stupid. Speaking of getting in the truck in Lombard, you still hear from G-Face at all? Oh, you said he blocked you, didn't he?
Yeah, he blocked me on there too. And I know I ruffled the feathers with because speaking of lease purchasing, I just went on Trucking for Millennials today, and I mentioned like lease purchasing, which, Dom, is something that I'm so glad you never have like ever encountered on your side of the freight world. But like, I had that video pop off about people who do the lease purchase program thing at Prime. And I mean, that's a whole other gimmick, along with the people who have been selling trucking as a form of passive income on YouTube. It's like it's the company, passive income. And I don't know in what
passive.
world, like in what world, where are we at now to where people truly think they can make money by not working? Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but that's not how it works. Unless you have so much money to invest to put into different fucking brokerage accounts, guess what? If you want income, there's no such thing as fucking passive income. No. I refuse to believe that. Even like, and you're showing that right now, Dom, with you like doing short-term rental stuff.
Yeah,
that's not fucking passive income.
It's the furthest thing from passive. It is absolutely active income. And people try to say real estate in general is passive income. And sure, it can be, but the best operators are very active operators, and they make their properties nice, and they make the most money, and they rise to the top. And then all the passive people are the reason why you see some of the headlines that say like Airbnb bust, and you see a lot of these guys who are just like bellies up on their Airbnbs. It's because they just bought generalized houses in the middle of nowhere, or they own these houses before COVID, and people were traveling in ways they otherwise wouldn't. And that applies to all markets. But yeah, there's really no such thing as true passive income, unless you just inherit a ton of money and just put it in government T-bills.
Well, how about like areas like the Ninth Ward in Louisiana, where there were entire areas just completely wiped out by Katrina, and then when the neighborhoods were rebuilt, a bunch of like Airbnb entrepreneurs like just snatched up entire square blocks. And that was just an article I read like years ago, and I still don't know if any of them are still around. But yeah, it's absolutely wild. Like you'll have like locals who didn't move out after Katrina, and next thing they know, like the entire like community around them has completely changed, and it's all short-term rentals and people there just to party for the weekend and leave.
I'm pretty sure that's what Dom's doing.
Yeah, my neighbors hate me.
But with the lease purchasing, these types of the lease purchasing has become. And
are we talking about lease purchasing or short-term rentals or
everything, baby?
Well, both, because the mantra and the ideology of like getting into a business with nothing down or somehow making a business work with little or no input. And don't get me wrong, there are people who have succeeded. There's a girl on TikTok who DM'd me her story about how she succeeded with, lease purchasing from Prime. And, and that's great. And there's people who win off it. However, in the majority, this system is set up for large carriers to convince people who are more so disenfranchised that they can own a business with very little down. They can walk away very easily. And all it really does is it suppresses wages. Wages become suppressed because a bunch of people.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure.
Use my help.
A bunch of people came onto that post and were saying like, I'm a fleet owner now. And they run, they're like, I have 3 or 4 trucks. And it's like, you have 3 or 4 trucks of paying somebody. You're paying somebody 50 to 60 cents a mile, 1099ing with no benefits. Like all it is just, you've become a glorified like MLM manager. Because what's stopping your driver from going to doing the same thing in leasing? Like, how are you keeping that talent? Like, it still keeps the turnover high, or the fake driver shortage that the ATA gets away with saying still keeps turnover high, and it just keeps wages down. And all you really get to do is you're moving mega carriers cheap freight for trucks that they're no longer having to pay for. Imagine being being a company like Prime or PAM Transport, and you can get people to pay you to drive their assets. Like you're paying.
You may be able to get away with that in a really low interest rate environment, and you may also be able to get away with that until you have a truck that actually has an accident. Trucking, especially when you're an asset-based company, Mike, you know this better than anybody. When you're actually an asset-based company, that top line revenue gets small really, really fast after you pay all your bills. So if you want to be a prime operator and you buy a truck and you can find an asshat to drive it and not ask any questions about how this happened, that's very short-lived and it's not going to last forever. The moment you have a real issue, the party is going to be over.
Yeah, Madison absolutely nailed it. I can't tell you how many times I see on social media now of people who are documenting their journey, going into trucking school and saying, I'm going to sign on to carrier X, Y, and Z, and this and that. And then as soon as the word lease goes out their mouth, I'm just like, oh, they're done. They're not they're not even going to be driving in 6 months. They're going to be out of the industry. They're going to be bankrupt in 6 months because so many of these people go into this because they're told, oh, it's a great job. There's a driver shortage. You'll be making $80,000 your first year, easy peasy. Just sign on this dotted line and go move some freight. It's not that easy.
They're sold a bag of goods. If you want to do that, go W-2, learn the business, get an understanding of it, become friends with your boss, ask him questions. Maybe he'll teach you some things. I love when guys come work for me and they move on to bigger and better things, whether they learn from me and they can own owner operator. That makes me more happy than anything. Not all bosses are like that. I love when guys come and learn the industry and move on, but that's the best thing you can do. And then completely tune out the Facebook pages who will try to talk you out of it, and they'll try to tell you, oh, it's the worst time ever. Sure, it might be. Swim against the tide. Don't lose your shirt. Don't buy a truck with money you can't afford to lose to feed your family. But I see these Facebook pages and guy is saying how he's so excited he bought a truck, and then there's 100 comments about, oh my God, it's the worst time ever. Why would you do that? Man, that shit drives me crazy. It can be, but it also can actually be the decision you make in your life that will actually free you from the rat race, that will actually get you out of the truck for a 14-hour day. So when you're in your 40s, you can spend time with your kids. And I feel bad about saying that because someone's got to do the real work. Someone's got to drive the truck at the end of the day. But if you manage to get out and you manage to graduate to the next level and you can run a great company, of guys who love you, and you give them good comp and good vacation time and good benefits, and you can be one of the few to escape the rat race. Don't listen to the people on Facebook because they just wish they could do it. Swim against the tide and just do it.
Yeah, no, there are so many scumbag fleet owners out there. Excuse me. That if you have like a decent operation and you take care of your guys, they're gonna have to be like dragged away from you, kicking and screaming. I can't tell you how many postal contractors I knew that like treated their guys like shit, and they were still their drivers were like some of the most loyal guys out there. You know, it takes very, very little to make a driver feel appreciated, even when like they're being completely taken advantage of.
Right.
No, yeah, I did the same. I mean, I got my truck when it was apparently one of the worst times. That's what now I think would definitely be worse. I think if if I didn't have a truck at this point, but still the situation was the same, I don't know if I would get it. Only not because of being discouraged, but just because of reading the market or whatever, or not knowing the setup. Yeah, well, the only thing that worries me in groups is when guys go, just got this truck. Should I get my own authority or should I lease onto a carrier? What do you guys think? Who are you guys using for insurance? Whoa. You should have probably set yourself up before you got that truck and doing that, because that's what I'm looking at. Is like, because odds are this guy was like, holy shit, if I buy a truck, I can make money. That's my only difference is like, hey, before you got that truck, like you should have, been made sure within a week or so, like numbers are going to be on it from somebody, whether it's your own DOT or, you're going to be leasing onto a carrier. That's when it becomes frightening, when it's like, holy crap, wait a minute. You don't have, insurance. You don't have bobtail insurance set up yet. You don't know if you're going to go lease on. Whoa, that's those are the red flags. But yeah, other than that, no, guys should go all in at bad times. I think the only reason I know as much as I know now is because I got the truck in a down market. I think if I rode a 2-year good wave where I was swiping right and, banging hot freight every load, like you wish you were on Tinder. Like I think if I was doing that and I was just cash flowing all this money, I might have remained ignorant and remained blissful to the dangers of when that market drops. And I wouldn't have been able to, I talked about that on Trucking for Millennials today. We talked about ego. We talked about guys who say, oh, I'll never lease onto a carrier because I'm building somebody else's dream, or I'll never, I'm going to find my own freight, and do this. Like, yeah, they'll make any excuse to stay on their path because they must be right because they've been driving for 10 years. So they know, or like when it's just like when they're not looking at it from the business perspective. I know we can argue about the contractor model. I know there's a guy on Twitter who argues with me about the contractor model. And I know we have that Twitter account of, port driver NJ. And I think the ports have the contractor model really messed up. I know that there's indentured servitude with it, but there are ways to make it work and actually grow a business. And like I said, like Reed said earlier, though, control what we can control. Like, is the system flawed? Yeah, I'm trying to help fix it. That's the long game. That's why I'm making a podcast. That's why I talk to you guys. That's why I'm part of CDL Drivers Unlimited. That's the long game. But right now I'm going to do what I can do, control what I can control, and just do whatever I can, or do whatever I want and figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, that port Twitter account, it's a guy named Richie. He's a great guy. I keep forgetting to invite him onto the Discord. I'm going to get him one day. But yeah, I think with him, he was out of the port of New Jersey, so he's dealing with like some of the rougher parts of the area out here, and I think that and like the port of LA Long Beach, those kind of areas they've been run so messed up for so long that, like you said, exactly what you said. You gotta bail out. There's nothing. You're not going to change anything there overnight. It's been messed up for too damn long.
Is that the guy who was saying that all these people who are like selling their labor for too cheap are working too hard and are like not being like, he basically was like, you need to be lazier. That's basically what he said.
He was making more of a pro-union argument, I think. He was saying, there are a lot of people. I mean, it's true. I mean, what's going on at the ports is you do have a lot of...
But that's just like such a that goes back to my point about what can you do. That's just like such a nonsensical opinion to hold.
Reed, I would actually love to moderate a debate with you and Richie. That'd be fantastic.
Look, he has thought about this way more. This is his thing, right? Clearly. Like, that's his thing. This is not my thing. I don't have a dog in the fight. I just was, and when we were on the space, I was like, just trying to ask the question in such a way to get him to repeat. Okay, so these immigrants or whatever group you want to assign to, like, whatever label you want to put on the group, they're willingly selling their labor, their time for a rate that is less than his or less than this like ideal quote unquote like good rate, and they're being too efficient. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me.
That's
Yeah.
where that's where the protectionism of like unions come in. Is like, you know, scab, as they would argue, scab labor devalues their value.
Of course it does. Of course it does.
So they're
like
they're
if
gonna,
somebody's going to work for way less than you and be more efficient,
yeah.
like of course it's going to devalue your labor.
That I don't know how efficient those people are though, because some of those what ends up really happening is it ties into everything that kind of Gordon and I talk about. Is a lot of what these immigrants are doing is they will come here, they will own the authority, and they get these other guys here, they get these other newer immigrants here, and then they lock them in to work for them for very cheap. It becomes indentured servitude, and these guys are actually kind of kept as prisoners here, and they hold their immigration status. Oh, if you quit or if you take this truck anywhere else, I'm just going to seize your green card.
That's totally a thing.
And at the end of the day, what it is doing overall is it's suppressing wages, because that labor is also, these are the people who are backing up into me at truck stops in Iowa. These are the people who are leaving their piss bottles at parking lots. These are the people who don't have standards and don't live by the code.
So what's going to be done about it? Just like, that's the question, like what
Nothing.
can you do?
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do about it, and
keep talking about
it. I really enjoyed the conversations that I've had with Richie in the past. I don't agree with most of what he says. I don't think that the mindset should be we should all just be W-2 and just roll over because it's easier, because the system's so fucked that we should just be W-2. I think is actually the opposite of the answer. I think we should all have a I can do it attitude instead of don't even bother. Trust me, I tried it. Don't even bother. But that's really here nor there. The port of New Jersey is really just frankly corrupt. There is just like there's sort of a hangover of the New Jersey like 1970s, 80s mafioso way still lingers in what does remain unionized, which the port is. And a lot of the operators around the port just basically have been around long enough and own enough trucks debt free that they're able to ride out these terrible cycles. My truck stop is basically 80% sells to 80% of our volume is sold to port operators, and our volume's down 25% year over year from this time last year, which is massive. But we've seen these cycles happen before, so we prepare for them and we put money aside. I actually, as an operator, was terrified in 2020 when the government issued us a PPP loan. We accepted it with open arms because we didn't know what was going to happen. We ended up having the busiest year in company history with the highest profits in company history. And it scared us so much that we kept the government's PPP loan in a separate bank account.
Did you have to take it?
No, we didn't have to take it, but we genuinely didn't know what was going to happen. So we took it because we were like actually afraid. And the way the documents were written was basically, here is a non-recourse loan that you don't have to pay back as long as you keep, I believe, 75 or 85% of your staff. So you have to pay them even if there's no work for them. You have to keep them on payroll. So we did that with open arms. We thought we were doing the best thing, and we were doing what was offered to us. We ended up being busier than ever. A lot of companies didn't have that luxury. So we had money we wouldn't otherwise have, and we put it into an escrow account because we were actually afraid that the money was going to have to get paid back. And that really, really scared me. But we didn't go out and buy, and I make this joke all the time in the Discord, and it might not be well received by everybody. We didn't go buy G-Wagons. We put the money away for now. So now we're buying more trucks. So when the market ramps up, I'm redoing my software infrastructure, $180K. It's going to cost a shitload of money.
Wow,
we're buying trucks. We're preparing for when the next wave comes and it's going to be busy again. We're ready. We didn't spend the money back then.
You didn't put any chrome on your trucks?
No, we didn't buy. Dude, we didn't all go out and buy our wives G-Wagons and whatnot. And that's that is the same thing. The PPP loans were also offered to independent owner operators because they have themselves on their own payroll. So I had guys who I knew who got $26,000 checks just to keep themselves employed, and then had the busiest year they ever had pulling drayage out of the port of New Jersey. They didn't save that money. They went out and put, 10% down on a G-Wagon, and they still have to carry that car payment. And that's a lot of guys are really fast in Facebook to say all the things that happens around them, but they're not willing to take the responsibility for how poorly they ran their businesses.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a lot of guys like that. A lot of drivers on social media love embellishing.
Channel is old as time.
Yeah, they truckers are big embellishers. Like I call these people the one more guys on TikTok. They've always driven more miles. They make more money. Like as soon as you tell, this guy, I had this kid Jesse on my show, works for Central Oregon. He's very transparent about his paychecks on what he gets paid weekly by his company. And so many guys will be like, "Oh, I make this as an owner operator. I'm netting 10 grand." Anybody who's saying that they're netting 10 grand weekly as an independent owner operator with one truck is fucking lying to you. Unless they're moving like pharmaceuticals or like somebody mentioned today, or there's certain setup, but they'll never show you they won't show you their settlement. And it's like, are you having some $10,000 weeks? Shit, I had a $10,000 gross week, not net. I had a $10,000 gross week not too long ago. But guess what? There was also a lot of fuel that went into that. Yeah. I was lucky to get 3 loads up. I was lucky to get that's not the average.
There's also a lot of decent weeks. Sometimes there's not so great weeks. Sometimes there's amazing weeks. It's a blender. It all averages in.
Yeah. And one thing, if I wanted to be like that jerk, I could go in the comments and say, okay, break it down by hour. Show me your logs. Show me how many times. Show me how long you were on duty driving and on duty in the truck. And I think a lot of guys don't want to do that because once you start breaking down the numbers per hour, like maybe 25 an hour is like what most guys are doing, which ain't a lot for a truck. And that seems to be like the rate that everybody's offering now if they're paying by the hour. And that needs to come up.
No, but that's why we're here. We're here to bring the integrity back in. We're bringing integrity back into this industry and keep keeping it real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like a lot of these like local guys, like the Cisco strikes that are happening right now, they're completely sure. They make a lot of noise, but like when we were saying earlier, like what is there as far as like a union worried about scab workers like devaluing their labor? There's not a damn thing these guys are doing about that. They're negotiating with your employers, but as far as like, barricading the warehouses and preventing anyone from going in and out, like the days of those kind of strikes are gone. Like nobody would ever, stop a truck from trying to leave a facility right now. You're just asking for a huge lawsuit and stuff. So there's, I think did I send you that video? There's like a Cisco guy like leaving a warehouse, and he was a supervisor for Cisco who had a CDL. And so they put him in the truck so he can get a load out the gate. And when he was leaving, he had the side door on the reefer trailer open. So all the guys on the picket line are like, you idiot. That kind of stuff. But that's literally all they can do. And if this was the days of like, Jimmy Hoffa and stuff, like that guy would have never made it out of his car to get into the truck. Like they would have a couple of guys with some tire wrenches would have come out and broken his legs and smashed every window in that guy's car and slashed all his tires, and he would have had to like drag himself back home.
Yeah, and
fortunately, that's not the case anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that needs to return.
I mean, in some, it's like I said, I don't ever want to get into. I don't like getting into arguments with people. I do definitely have more of a pro-union sentiment when it comes to.
Wait, you don't like to get into arguments with people?
Well, I don't want to turn this show. I don't want to turn this show into. I don't want to either be boxed into. Because in some way, well, I guess it's probably too late for that because there's probably a quarter of people who listen who probably think I'm communist. There's probably other people who think that I'm, some sort of neo-fascist in a way because I said nice things about
when
kings.
In reality, you're just a based monarchist.
Yeah, when in reality, I'm actually just a super cool guy who just wants people to have better, more purposeful lives. But I hate to get boxed into being like, oh, you're pro-union, you must be a libtard communist. And it's like, no, it's just like, look, I think that they still have reasons. Like, could unions be tougher and stronger? And maybe, was that physical strong arming? Did it have a purpose in place? sure. I mean, the U.S. government uses it all around the globe, and apparently it's okay to go in. But God forbid people want to protect their livelihoods by maybe not letting somebody, take their job for cheaper. Are they really the enemy? I guess is the best way. But is it really that evil? Is it so uncivilized when we march into shithole countries for and march through them for 2 decades and blow their cities to smithereens, and then walk away with nothing? What's so bad in that grand scheme of things? Like I said, are unions the answer? I don't know, because look at Walmart and how they treat their drivers. It's like, so there's truth in the middle.
They're
In New Jersey,
yeah.
In New Jersey, to be a road constructor and to be awarded a bid, you need to be a union construction company. And New Jersey, the per mile cost to build a road is 10 times the national average and 3 times the cost of New York City.
Which is wild, but compared to the rest of the world, because in Germany it's far less in places like Germany. In Germany, it's probably half as much. Because I remember seeing a stat on this, how all these other countries who have great unionized labor, they're paying fucking ungodly amounts less per mile.
You also have to consider, so if it trickles down. So if you're a union road construction company, you can only buy fuel on site to your equipment by a fueling company who is a union fueling company. So I can't even bid on road stuff. Only union fuel companies can. And since you're a union fuel company, you have to pay your guys union dollars. So everything gets inflated. Basically, everyone is just getting a VIG for the sake of tacking on more. If you abolished the union in general on the roadside construction in New Jersey, everything would cost less. And it's not even like the guys get paid more money. The prevailing wage is not that high because so much of it goes into pension, which there's no guarantee that they get. That shit got bailed out. They're lucky. Some of it goes into just union dues. So on like $38 an hour, they really only see 28 of it, which is basically what the going rate in New Jersey is anyway. So I see both sides of unions, but in New Jersey, it just doesn't work. If you wanted to unionize me, if I had to be a union fueling company, I wouldn't do it. I would just leave the industry.
But yeah, and what's great about you, like, this is where they're not necessary. But on the flip side, what you're doing is you're offering, and this is the reason why the argument for unions, because like in countries like Sweden and Denmark, they have no minimum wages. There's no federal minimum wage laws in these countries because the set wages are simply the average wages between the private and public sector. So between the unions and the private market. So knowing you're competing with unions, offer fair wages and great benefits. And Walmart does, and I feel like this is like Walmart's doing the same thing with their drivers. Like, that's what it does. So like when unions do have a little bit of strength and that edge, like they do in Jersey, they're making companies like you guys, okay, well, hey, look, if I don't do this, either my drivers are going to say, hey, we're going to be Teamsters now, or you like you said, you'd just quit. You would just sell the business and quit.
Yeah, I would do it.
So
I think the difference with Walmart, though, is it's more of like an ingrained culture thing, because Sam Walton like knew trucking in and out, like, so he knew he needed to take care of his guys. The cashiers and the stock clerks maybe not so much, because those guys aren't paid worth a damn, but the truck drivers definitely sure are. I mean, when I started trucking in 2007, Harley Davidson and Walmart were like the 2 hardest companies to get into. Harley Davidson doesn't even have a truck fleet anymore. I think Schneider contracts all their stuff now. But until recently, Walmart was still like Walmart had a higher rejection rate than Harvard
for drivers.
For applicants.
Yeah, just for applicants.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Walmart doesn't have an undergraduate program.
Yeah. But Chick-fil-A is the same way. People always, Chick-fil-A franchise owners, it's harder to become.
So hard.
Yeah, it's easier to get into Harvard in those colleges because, like, to be a Chick-fil-A franchise owner, yeah, you only need 10 grand, but you need to be an active member of your community. You need to be active member of your church. You need to have been like, you basically need to be like the guy from It's a Wonderful Life, of your town. You have to be that well loved by your community to do
My wife got through 4 out of 5 of the interviews. It is so hard
for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, for Chick-fil-A, It's crazy.
I went to one for the first time in years the other day, and yeah, oh my god, it's so nice.
Place is
Like-
dialed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Their
So dialed.
drive-throughs are just like bomb.
It's a machine.
Yeah.
And like everybody was happy to be there. It wasn't like, what do you want? It's like, hey, how can I help you?
There's never better customer service. Yeah, they're the proof in the pudding too when it comes to turnover and wages. Like
Yeah.
they're another company.
Is Chick-fil-A unionized?
No,
No.
You could start working there in high school. You could start working there in high school. Like I think managers at those stores are making six figures, and if you
Yeah.
start
The
there when you're-
operator needs to spend 30 hours a week there.
yeah, the actual owner. Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
the owner themselves of the franchise needs to work.
That's
there
why
as
they're
well.
ran. That's why they're ran well.
Yeah, the one I went
You
to.
can't
they
have
had a-
20 of them.
They had a new guy there. I guess they're like Star Trek characters. They wear red shirts. So I pull into the drive-through, and like the guy's like stumbling. He's like trying to get around, but there's this trainer like right behind him, and she's like walking through the steps. And like it was great. Like how many times do you ever go to some place and it's like a new person there, and they're screwing up, and you're like, this is the worst experience ever. This was like it was a new guy, and I could tell he was struggling, but like he was trying. It wasn't like there was no effort. Like it was like enjoyable. It was an enjoyable experience. But In-N-Out Burger, same
Yeah, same
thing.
concept.
Costco,
They also have sick trucks.
They do. I wonder
In and Out has sick.
how is
trucks.
and how is that going to continue, because those Peterbilts that they have aren't going to be you can't renew the registration starting this year.
Yeah, in California.
Yeah. So what the
Yeah,
fuck
I don't
are they
know.
gonna
I
do?
mean, their whole like where they open stores is determined by where they can like deliver their own using their own fleet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because around here they're day cabs. Like, because there's a couple. There's an In-N-Out in New Braunfels. There's several not far from. There's a lot in Central Texas, but they're all day cabs. So
Well, it's still
I'm
the
curious.
Peterbilts, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just like the idea of like a fleet of like white Volvo In-N-Out burgers just disgusts me to my core.
that would be funny. But yeah, their business model is set up the same way. But hey, we've been ripping for 2 hours here, man. You guys ready to cash in or what?
Yeah,
I think I'm ready. I think we blew right by Reed Spaces.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're not even doing that tonight. We're doing
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
on,
that's good.
We're doing it on Thursday.
We should have figured out how to like stream this via Twitter and made this like this.
Oh, it's live on Twitter right now.
Oh, beautiful. God,
Yeah,
I love
it's been live on Twitter.
Dude, hey,
But-
I just need to announce that I stood up and walked away because my daughter got her first tooth.
Oh,
Nice.
congratulations!
Nice.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Do you see the other ones coming in through the gums yet? That's always creepy.
No, just one little
Oh,
one
it's so
peeking
gross.
out.
Next time you
That's
change your
awesome.
diaper, and if her head's back, check out her gums. 'Cause that's what we did with my son. He got like 5 teeth all at once.
Dude,
It
it looks
was-
weird, man.
Oh, it's so gross. It's so
Yeah.
gross seeing the gums come out.
It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy, after all these years of evolution or whatever, why we only get two sets of teeth. I think we get robbed on teeth. Like, how we
Well,
don't
you can pull them all out and get fresh ones put in if you want, dude.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
my lower two are fake.
well, yeah.
they're-
When's nature
dentures.
going to take over? And
Well, maybe we can put in like a help ticket with God or something, and he might dial in
you might figure out,
dial in a firmwware update for us.
like sharks get like 32 sets of teeth or some shit. Like,
I was
think
just
we're
gonna
getting-
say all these guys that are messing around with sharks that are beaching themselves. Let one of them figure something out. And
Yeah, we're getting robbed on that. But hey, great thing to know. Twitter Spaces, to anybody, hopefully everybody's made it. This one's definitely for the drivers. 2 hours, you have to listen in increments. But on this Thursday, and actually normally Reed, are Spaces normally going to be every Tuesday, Thursday from now on?
I'm thinking. So I'm like thinking of moving them to just Thursdays because I'm like fucking busy. If somebody, Justin, I don't know if you want to host one on Tuesday, and if I can come, I will, and I'll just do the one Thursday. And if you want to come, great. I don't know.
It would be my pleasure. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I used to have a podcast through Freightwaves, the Back to Truck Up podcast, but we don't do that anymore. And it was a lot of fun flexing my podcast muscles on
Let's
that.
do that. Yeah, let's. I'm like, I want to do them, and we're gonna continue to do them at least once a week. But like, fuck, dude, like, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time. And now that my kids like, it's like right during her bedtime, and I'm like always away, and my wife is pissed at me, and I'm just
mine's texting me saying, "Hey, we wrap it up, boys."
yeah. No, but let's, Justin. I'll talk to you, and we'll sort it out.
Okay, yeah, no, it was fun. Yeah, I put my. I don't know if you heard him screaming at the beginning of the podcast, but 8:00 is his bedtime. But nothing a little melatonin can't fix. as we're discovering.
Oh yeah, let's go. Perfect. So Twitter Spaces, what time this Thursday?
It's on. It's 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
9 p.m. Eastern.
9 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, be there. Anybody who listens, come on. It doesn't matter whether you work in the industry or not. What we're trying to do is get this conversation going and mainstream it to the same level. Like I said, before you know it, Matt's will be the next. We're going to turn Matt's into the next Burning Man.
Can we do Lumber Appreciation Week during Matt's?
Oh,
that's
God help us if they ever resurrect GATS, because we had Mats this year, but no GATS. I think GATS is defunct. But if somebody ever
what is Mid America Truck Show, Mid America Lumber Show, malls?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
we could have the base. We could have the trying to what could be balls based. The Based American Lumber Show.
Based American Lumber Show. Yeah, balls.
All right, great. Well, we'll work on the title.
Yeah, we'll workshop some stuff. But before we sign off, let's go around the room. For all the listeners out there, where can we find you? Dom, where can the people find you and support what you got going on?
Sure. Mostly on Twitter. I'm Dominic_Tullo on Twitter. You could find me there.
And also make sure you guys check out the Truck Coin Swap podcast and what we got going on over at TCS. There's a lot of exciting things, and I haven't gotten into too much detail on it yet because I don't know everything I'm able to go into and talk about. I have to get with Todd about that, but there's a lot of great stuff going on. If you remember back to the episode I did with Dom, factoring is another thing that it's dead glue at this point. It's a predatory part of this industry that just takes money out of carriers, and we're trying to fix that. So definitely go check out Dom on Twitter and check out the TCS podcast. And Justin, where can the people find you and what you're up to? Because you mentioned it, you're not doing Back to Truck Up anymore, but you're still with Freightwaves.
Yeah, so we wrapped all that up back into What the Truck. So I run the What the Truck Twitter at FW What the Truck. Same handle for our TikTok, FW What the Truck. We just reached 5,000 followers on Twitter and 30,000 followers on TikTok as of yesterday. So, hooray for us!
Bro, send some traffic my way. What the fuck?
You got it. Hey, I repost everything you guys post. I send some love your way. And then my personal Twitter is at @SuperTrucker. The name is ironic. I die a little bit inside every time somebody at Freightwaves introduces me as Justin Super Trucker Martin because they don't get the joke. They just think it's a cool name.
No, that's the best part though.
Yeah, it's money.
Don't tell them.
That handle is worth money. And
I was sitting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was sitting at a truck stop in Ruther Glen, Virginia, and I saw some guy's window get smashed in, and that's how I came up with the name Super. The name just like popped into my head. I was on Twitter, and I was like, I needed a username, and I didn't want to keep using Phoenix Smasher like I've always been using because I'm a big Tekken guy. So I came up with something else because I saw some guy's window get smashed in. So that's where Super Trucker came from.
Love that.
Oh, me. My Twitter handle is LostIsReed. If you're a carrier and you're interested in something that's freaking awesome, you can go to lostfreight.com. It's spelled LOSTFR8, the number 8, just to confuse people. Lostfreight.com. It's awesome. You can follow us at Lost Freight on Twitter too, with an underscore after it. You can join our Discord if you're interested in talking with us fine people frequently. You could go to discord.lostfreight.com and you can join. I think that's it.
No, I think that wraps it up, man. That's episode 69 in the books. The march to episode 420 begins now. And I look forward to what all of us are going to do between 69 and 420, because I think a lot of good stuff is in the future. As Dom has said, I'm very bullish on the freight communities, and especially when it comes to all of you guys. I can't appreciate you enough for coming on. Love this talk. We'll be doing it more again. Like I said, I'd like to take the show. I'd like to do more live. I'd like to just, I'm trying to talk to obviously as many drivers as possible. Dom, you being a fleet owner, Reed continuously talking to carriers and all of us learning. So, I need to have you guys rotating back on, especially as stuff goes off in the media. So we'll all be in touch, but I can't thank you enough. And thank you all for listening, especially if you made it this far, especially if you tuned in live.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Lombard.
Thanks for having me, man.
But yes, gentlemen, take care. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.